Hi, everybody. Welcome to Goblin Talk. I'm James Baxter. I'm here with Kristen Moretz and Alden Eberhart. We were going to do an episode of Entropy tonight, but one of our player characters is under the weather, so we thought we'd get on here and talk about min-maxing. Pros and cons. Is it better to make your character as powerful in combat as possible or not? I've been told that both Kristen and Alden have very strong opinions on the subject. And as far as I understand, Kristen, you are anti-min-maxing.
I don't want to say I'm anti because I understand that it has its place, but I would say I'm strongly against. Yes.
And Alden, you're pro?
Absolutely, and I can't wait to tell you why you guys are both wrong for any of your opinions.
Well, I'm relatively ambivalent on the subject, so who wants to go first? How about Alden, you want to go first, and then Kristen can destroy your argument?
Absolutely,
Okay.
I'm happy to do that. That way I can look as a young min-maxer whose eyes have been opened. But what it is that it's right there in the name, min-max. Yeah, I get it. You're building your character. Maybe your character's really great at one thing, but there's a min to the max, especially if the system is properly designed. There's no way you can be perfect at everything. So then when you've built in these inherent amazingness, it should also have a glaring weakness or something you're not good at. And that serves for great roleplay, great teamwork. So I'm just saying, if you do go out and you min-max, you're not doing anything wrong. Especially as long as you're not, here's a term I'm going to throw out there, totally munchking it, and like you have no weaknesses. Then at that point, what was the point? And why didn't you just put in a cheat code and go play a video game by yourself? But I like min-maxing because I like to have those pitfalls as well as things that I am amazing at, and I think that it makes for a great dynamic game.
Okay. Wait,
Kristen,
James, you have something?
You're
Okay.
No, I do have a rebuttal.
All right.
I did first want to say that I really appreciate you guys having me on. Whenever James texted me today, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be on Goblin Talk. I'm so excited. Even though I'm in other podcasts, I was like, this is a big moment for me. So I really appreciate it.
We're glad you're here. I thought you were going to say no.
No, I'm so
We wouldn't
excited.
have blamed
I literally,
you. Yeah.
I had other things, like once Morgan had something else going on, I was like, well, I probably need to get some stuff done. And I was like, nope, not anymore. I'm ready to shoot all of Alden's ideas down. But the thing is that I do understand where min-maxing definitely has a place. And I see your point where like most characters are really good at X, Y, and Z. But the thing is, most of the time when we're creating characters nowadays, especially because it's, a pandemic and everything is done virtually for the most part, we're already doing like standard array and point buy when we make characters in D&D Beyond. So we are min-maxing from the moment we press create new character. So then on top of that, we're going to be like, oh, I'm going to be a warlock and I'm only going to use Eldritch Blast and I'm going to combine it with, I'm going to be a warlock paladin and then I'm going to be super powerful. And it's like, we're already doing that when we use the point buy and standard array system. No one rolls for stats anymore. So now we're building on top of that. Just play a video game. This is, that's my argument.
I like that, and I would like to say that I want to bring back rolling stats.
Yeah.
Because then it makes my min-maxing even better.
I don't know. I've had quite a few players that, especially early on when I was DMing one of my first games, I had players and they'd be like, oh, is it cool if we roll stats instead of using point buy? And, when you're a new DM, you're like, sure, whatever, why not? How bad could it be? And they're like, oh my God, I rolled 4 18s. How did that happen? And they didn't even roll there. You know what I mean? I'm like,
okay, well, you have to roll for them, you fool.
Maybe we should do that
Good night.
again. Oh, you're going to do it for them?
Yeah, there you go.
That's not a
Or
bad
you
idea.
watch them as they roll.
Yeah, or back in the before times, in the long ago, you were in person when it happened.
Yep.
But then you end up with like 4 6s, you know? You've seen
You
me
don't.
roll, Eldon. You've seen me roll.
Well, yes, that personally, I can believe that. But also, there is a whole rule for throwing out a set of stats if it looks too ridiculous. So, James, apparently you just be rolling for an hour until you got the decent set of stats.
Well, then I might as well just gone with point buy.
I think it's dangerous for new players too, because for new players you are really wanting to be powerful and you're really wanting to be the best at that thing, but ultimately you get so focused on your own character that you don't realize that, you know, not having variety in your character, which is a lot of what min-maxing does, it kind of pigeonholes you into what you're really good at. So these new players will focus so much on that and what Reddit comment they read, and that's the most powerful character you can build. And then it doesn't give the party that variety, and it doesn't give. I mean, it doesn't give them the same. I mean, D&D is a cooperative game. It's about playing together and learning together. And when you pigeonhole yourself from the beginning, that expansiveness becomes more difficult.
I don't know. We were texting with Joe earlier, and he said his argument would be that in 5e there is no min-maxing; it's impossible. Or Pathfinder 2, for that matter, the second edition, and he's kind of right. I mean, you can set your character up to be good at that one thing. And then, you know, if I'm doing the rolling, I'm getting, you know, I never roll over a 10. So, you know, I mean, it still comes up to the dice, right?
Yeah, that's true. And here's the thing. I agree that each person, if you want that variety, that's a good thing. But I think that you're supposed to, when you come together as a party, and then sometimes as a DM, especially with a new group, you have to make sure that each person shines at something so that there is that moment to shine. Or else, you know, you're sitting back there and you're like the rogue who's got disabled device, and he's like, oh yeah, there's a lock, you can't do it. And then somebody who's, now I don't know if this is a min-maxer or a person that's on more on Christianity, but someone who's also got disabled device goes and is like, I got it, and then just the rogue sitting there like, I'm really good at that, and now their chance to shine is gone. So I don't know. Now is this more discussion about min-maxing versus just having fun with it, or is it more about the fact that you're supposed to know your role in a party, and then at that point, min-max if you want to?
I think those two things are related, you know? Because you do have those people that want to do everything. We call those people bards.
Yes.
You know, they play the bard. They play the skill monkey.
Yeah.
You know, and they always, you know, and if you were playing that rogue, and that's all you do is stealth and unlock doors and stuff, and they're like, well, I can stealth too, and you're like, can you just give me a second, buddy? You know, let me do my thing, you know?
Yeah.
That's all I do. I'm a rogue. Let me do my thing. I don't know. Does your rogue need to be able to roll intimidation on top of stealth? Do you need to? I don't know. I mean,
that's what the min and min-max comes in, baby.
I mean, it's tough too, because when I'm building my own characters, if I'm a druid, then I'm going to choose wisdom first. If I'm playing a barbarian, I'm going to choose strength first. You know, I'm talking standard array, so the classic min-max scenario. But then my second stat, no matter what, if I have a choice, is Constitution. And that doesn't always play to the class itself, but I feel like I'm an adventurer. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. I better be hardy, or I'm not going to make it out of this cave alive.
Yeah.
So that's always an interesting piece of it too, is how much of it is based on class, and then what your character is supposed to be doing throughout the campaign.
Get some cameos of producer Erica Hart at work back there.
Hey, Erica.
Oh,
my computer
completely lost James's voice, which is probably what he was doing.
Hello.
Oh, there he is. He's back. Okay, great.
cat issues. Sorry.
I understand. All right.
So if you're not if you're determined to not be the min-maxer or the power gamer, what are you doing with your stats? Right? Because if you're gonna be a min-maxer, you're gonna be the best at whatever, like your barbarian with a 20 strength and the rest is con, and then dex, and you just completely dump intelligence and charisma and wisdom, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what's the opposite of that?
Like, I feel like it all goes back to character creation, right? Because whenever, like the character I'm about to make for Morgan's campaign on Wednesday, even though I'm a druid, I put a ton into charisma because it's based on the way I want to play the character. So there's that side of it too, which makes me much less powerful. I will say, because you're not playing towards your class, but you are playing to your intended role or your hopeful role in the party.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know. There's another way to do it.
we can, and I'm glad using that as an example for that character that I built for that campaign. I know I have an 8 in intelligence and an 8 in dex because min-maxing is the only way to go. But also, it's just as a paladin, that's the way you do it. I mean, that's not necessarily the way you could be a dex-based paladin, of course, but I didn't want to. And so now I'm like, well, this is what I'm going to do, well, I'm going to do it all the way. And I'm going to have those glaring weaknesses, and I can't wait to play a paladin. And just come in and like you guys like say something to me. I'll be like, oh well, all right, yeah, that sounds reasonable to me because I'm an idiot, and I'm gonna have a lot of fun with it. And now suddenly it's feeding into the role play because I'm min-maxed.
And see, that works. And I think that's the toughest part when you're a new character, is when you can't adapt it to your role play and make that min-maxing part of your character and part of the experience. Because there are so many people that get so focused on how much damage can I do. And it's like, there are a lot of sessions that have 0 combat.
Yeah.
Don't worry. What you doing, buddy?
Yeah.
Yeah, our Saltmarsh game last Friday had no combat.
I'm running Storm King. There's so much combat in that, and I've taken so much of it out and had tons of sessions without it.
I have done that as well. I'm running Out of the Abyss, and they've got all of this great combat oriented party. So sometimes I'll like read the combat beforehand and be like, okay, no, they murder that guy. All right, so here's what actually happens. It's like he surrenders to you, yeah, because these NPCs want to live.
And as a DM, you have these players, PCs that are, I mean, unless they're just rolling really bad that night, they're going to kill everything, right?
Yeah.
Unless that the barbarian has a 20 strength and an 8 wisdom, and anything with a wisdom save, they're going to fail, right? So there is the min part of the max, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's, so.
You mean like from a DM's perspective?
Yeah.
Where oh yeah, that's true.
It gives you something to throw a wrinkle in their works.
It sure does. Just like Sybil Destruction Jackson, who has never passed a wisdom save.
Ever. Like just statistically, it's so incredible that it's never happened.
Yeah, you think eventually Sybil would get lucky, but
Yeah, just the dice would help her out there.
as bad as me. We had one night where we were rolling in on roll 20 out in the open,
There's your first mistake right there.
and I rolled a 1, a 2, and a 3, and then went back to 1, and then I think I rolled a 7, and that was like the whole thing. That was my highest roll was a 7 that night, I think. So,
By then the combat was
frustrating.
over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep.
It can be frustrating. No, it doesn't matter if you're min-max at that point.
Well, I don't know. If you min-maxed your character, that 7
Well,
is definitely going to hit.
Maybe the 7 would have hit in that case, right? Mm-hmm.
Yes!
That
I
is-
feel like I'm definitely winning this argument.
Okay, that's a good point.
Joe is rolling in his grave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, other than doing damage, what is the purpose of
I have
doing it?
a great example of that now. Brace yourself, James. This is the Pathfinder game.
Oh,
We have a
boy.
character there. His name is what's our bard's name again? Jeez, help me out here.
I don't remember his name, but he has a French accent.
The
that's
French accent.
even
Our
worse
French
than
bard.
mine.
Our French bard, and this is great because I hope Joe eventually watches this and goes, I can't believe you forgot his name. But either way, he is awful at combat. The worst combat character. Like James, mentioned it and was making fun of him, and he was like, "Why are you so bad at this? Do you realize that combat is like 90% of this game?" And then we got into a social encounter. And he's like, okay, I rolled a diplomacy check, 45. And the DM's like, oh, holy crap, what the crap is going on? And he min-maxed in the exact opposite direction of what a normal player does. And he is a social monster. But then when it comes to combat, he hides behind us and just taps us with your ooh.
Well, he did screw some things up with Grease.
Yeah, and he cast
yeah.
Grease because Grease is an awful spell and it should be removed. But anyways,
He was arguably more effective in that combat than I was. In fact, not even arguably, he was more effective in that combat
got the
because he cast Grease. So Alden's doing the.
Cool.
You gotta do the
above a
voodoo.
5. Are you good, James?
Gotta do the voodoo. There we go. You're back, sort of. So anyway, Kristen.
Above a 10 and have a good time.
Still gone.
Yeah, he's sort of there and sort of not. Sorry, he'll be back. So, Kristen, if you were gonna, what kind of a class would you roll up if you weren't gonna min-max at all? Would you do that with a barbarian?
Well, I'm still waiting to see that dex-based barbarian that Steven's been talking about.
Well, he chickened out at the last minute, you know.
Chickened out. I know. It's because, but it makes sense because it would be tough to find what your role is in the party, especially as a barbarian, where you are definitely expected to have this high combat character. I think you could make any character and not min-max in any way.
And still be effective?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I pretty much did that. You'll see on Wednesday with my druid. I did not. The only thing I put good stats in was wisdom, which I guess it is my highest for spell casting, but it was still standard array. So, I mean, charisma is my third highest stat, which is pretty much useless for a druid.
Yeah. I mean, I'm doing a sorcerer in that one, so my stats are all over the place for that.
Yeah.
Hello, Alden. Are you back?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Papa, can
You're kinda
you hear
back.
me?
Still a little robot janky. That's all right.
Hello?
Hello.
Okay, good.
Okay, you're back. All right. I was just, we were talking about.
I could hear everything you were saying.
Oh, you
That was
could?
very strange,
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. All
That was
right, well,
very nice.
good. We don't have to catch you up then.
Yeah, no. But either
Yeah.
way,
What do you think about classes, as far as?
I think that you could play a non-min-max character and have a great time in D&D 5th edition. Yes.
Yeah.
Even with a barbarian.
Even with a barbarian.
Okay.
I mean, you're not going to hit as often as a min-max barbarian, but you know what? You might, depending on what you're doing with your non-min-max stuff, you might still, especially if your DM is experienced enough and smart enough to realize, oh, okay, well, this guy didn't min-max into a slugger, but what did he do? I will make sure that comes to play. And then you don't feel as awful for not min-maxing because your DM rewarded you for it. And then that's all it is. It's a social contract. It's a two-way street. Min-max. If you expect your characters to min-max and you are throwing monsters and you're only doing combat, then that's all you're gonna get. So that's fair.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Have you ever
Yeah.
done it the other way and just completely kibbled yourself?
Um,
Kind of like Steven
In
and his dex-based barbarian.
in the name of role play, or in the name of I want to see how bad my stats can be.
Why not both? Yeah. I mean, have you ever? I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I sit around if I get bored and I like make characters on D&D Beyond or
Oh
whatever,
yeah.
and I'll play around with stats and try to come up with different combinations of things and see what the best is, and sometimes the worst. So, if you're gonna play a dex-based barbarian, I mean, where do you put that high stat? I mean, or the second highest. I mean,
on, duh. But
Okay.
then again, that's the min-max of
Always
you
fun.
talking. So I don't know.
It's
Yeah.
always fun.
Yeah.
maybe you're.
Yeah, I think
Mm-hmm.
it's tough too, because whenever, especially when I play with a new character, and I play with kids a lot, so it's totally different too when you're playing with kids, because they don't always have such a high interest in rules, and they don't have such a high interest in like how much damage can I do. And honestly, if you're playing with kids, like you just do it based on time. You don't actually get the character down to a hit point level. You're just like, okay, the kids are bored and they
Yeah.
either won or lost, then you move on. But
We kind of
it's
do that with
interesting.
adults too. Let's be honest. I mean,
It's true. It's like this is dragging on far too
right,
long.
yeah. Everybody's
Um,
bored. Fight over. The guy's dead. Hooray! Yeah.
Yep. Or he ran away, and you'll have to drag him later. Yeah. But it's interesting because when I'm trying to help children build characters, especially if they've never played before, I ask them, "What do you want to be?" And it's not, "Do you want to be a barbarian? Do you want to be a druid?" It's like, how do you want to go on this adventure? Do you want to be the person who's there to help your friends? Do you want to be fighting based? Do you want to like be a doctor or whatever? Because they've all seen every Disney movie in the book. Like, do you relate to Dumbo as a character who is shy and or whatever? So it's interesting, because then when you do it that way, your stats end up not being super balanced, but the idea is what they're going to do.
That's not a bad way to approach it with adults either.
Yeah.
You know, your answer
It
to which
probably would help some adults.
the answer to which character you want to be might be Jon Snow instead of Dumbo, but I mean the same basic idea, right?
The answer is always John Cena.
I did have a kid tell me they wanted to be Dumbo one time, and it was super cute.
That's got to be amazing, though. Like to try and build Dumbo in D&D.
Yep.
Well, maybe we'll have Ben on here at some point. My cousin Ben.
Okay.
He's had his whole family playing D&D, and he's DMing it. And his son is, I don't want to get her. I think he's like 8 or 9. He might have just turned 9. Sorry if I got that wrong. And I haven't seen him in person since he was like 5. So, but I'll get on with Zoom with him occasionally, and the boys playing a Tabaxi rogue, and he's all about the rules. I don't know. He's very he's the one who keeps everybody focused.
That little min-maxer. Bless him. Bless him.
Yep. You wanna?
My cousins are the exact opposite. I play with my cousin over the holidays, and it'll be like, my 12-year-old cousin. She's like, "I just want to be a fairy." And I'm like, "Okay, we're gonna figure out how to make you a fairy." Tinkerbell. Let's see what we can do here. So it's weird, because min-maxing definitely has a place, but I do think that because there's so much ego naturally in just the human way, that everyone gets so pigeonholed when it comes to min-maxing that it can take away from the role play, because everyone wants to be important and everyone wants to be the best, but sometimes you end up being the same as 50,000 other people.
And I will say against min-maxing in order to help help James out here. Joe is running a campaign where he built all the characters for our fraternity brothers because they had no idea what they were doing. And Joe built all of these characters and he min-maxed the crap out of them. And now all I hear day in and day out is Joe complaining about how hard it is to challenge us. And I'm like, congratulations, Joe, you played yourself. You know, if you'd let these newbies build their own characters, there would be challenges. Challenges would abound. But instead now, like, we're like walking in like, and he's like, oh my God, why are you guys so good at this? We're like, because you built them that way, Joe. So, yeah.
Well, one thing we hadn't even mentioned yet, we talked about stats. You know, you play your biggest stat and strength if you're a barbarian or whatever. But I mean, race too. You know, they get those pluses and their minuses. You know, it's some of them get minuses. My poor goblins.
There's a reason everyone's a half-elf druid.
Or wood elf ranger.
Or variant human
Goliath,
anything.
Or Goliath barbarian. Or one thing that's really interesting though, when Tasha's comes out, they're supposed to be changing that up a little bit.
Okay.
With their no, I don't think anybody's actually read it yet, so we're not exactly sure what's going to happen.
Yeah,
but
we're excited.
One thing that they might do is you pick your whatever race it is, and you get 3 points, and you could stick them wherever you want. You want to put all 3 points in strength, go ahead. If you want to put 2, split it up, 2 here, 1 there, or whatever. And one of the arguments I've heard about that online is that it's going to lead to min-maxing. But
yeah, that sounds.
People are going to do that anyway, right?
Yes, we are.
So I don't know. I mean, my favorite race to play is Goblin, of course, and the poor guys, you know, they get.
Yeah, it would be nice for you to be able to pick up a goblin and feel like you aren't being held back in whatever you want to do.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, you know. Just because you're a goblin doesn't mean you're a weak little, you know what I mean? Maybe you're a freakishly strong goblin. That's why you're an adventurer, you know?
You want to be a goblin barbarian, you know? I'd love to see a goblin barbarian.
That's why you decided to become an adventurer, because you're a freakish strong goblin, you know? So, I don't know. I'm really interested to see what that book has in it.
Yeah.
And see what happens when it comes out. I think there's going to be some cool stuff in there.
How often have you guys played in parties where there is multiples of the same class?
I haven't played in a party like that, but I DM'd one at DragonCon. It was one of the 4-hour games, and there were 7 players, and 4 of them were monks. Yeah, and this is one of those games where everybody just kind of, they didn't know each other. I think there were like 2 couples and a couple of guys that knew each other, and an odd man out, and 3 women and 1 guy all came as monks, and it was interesting. I mean, it went by real fast. It was over a year ago, so I don't remember what subclasses they were or anything like that, but they would yell like monk swarm whenever they attacked something. It was a good time.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of variation with monks. So, I mean, you could have a party with all monks if you really wanted to.
And honestly, I think this is like a big part of my filthy power gamer min-maxer background, is that even when I was a beginner and I joined the party of the guys that first taught me how to play D&D 3.5, they were like, all right, well, he's this class, he's that class, so you can't pick any of those. Pick anything else that you want to be, though. And you're like, okay, great. So then, like, you're already ingrained that I am not supposed to fulfill the role of the other roles in the party. And so I have never been a part of a thing where we've come in blind and accidentally ended up with more than one. And other than that, with your Pathfinder. Sorry, James, you'll never get a D&D Beyond promote you now, but with Pathfinder there was one class that was super broken called the Inquisitor, and we looked at it and we realized this can do everything in the game. So we came as a bunch of Inquisitors that were each specializing in a different thing, and the DM pulled his hair out and hated us. We were just like, yes!
I mean, you get
Well,
some
that's fair.
interesting games when nobody knows each other and they just show up with a character.
And then it can definitely happen, and then you can have people stepping on each other's toes. But then you're trying to just make it so that it's like it's not a competition, it's teamwork, and you try and
even in campaigns where everybody does know each other, like Morgan's thing, we're gonna start Wednesday. I'm playing a sorcerer, and I was gonna go shadow sorcerer, but since we have a rogue in the group, I went with dragon instead, or dragon blood.
So that way the rogue has a thing.
Yeah, because that's
really
taken care of. That's I don't
Yeah.
have to do that. That's already in the party, you know. So it's more about teamwork, or what about you?
I joined that session 0 late, and that was my first question. Hey, what is everybody? So I can make a character.
Yeah. See?
Yeah.
Automatically.
Already you're min-maxing. You just need to take it to the next level.
No, I like to very heavily, I definitely see, especially when you're an experienced player, I think that min-maxing is super helpful. It's so hard reading these Reddit comments and articles about because when we were doing class warfare, I actually haven't played Bards and Barbarians. I kind of stay away from. I haven't really played very many of them. And so when I pulled Barbarian for class warfare, I was like, well, better do some research.
Boy.
Sitting there and reading articles, and it's really interesting. But it's also like, man, if I was a new player, if this is where I was getting my information, instead of actually trying to role play a character like that, I don't know. I mean, Turnock, Nash, Adaman, they would have been completely different characters if we didn't have that background.
Funny that you say that, because I did come to you as the min-maxer, but I'm going to tell you right now, that's a toxic freaking community.
It can be.
Like that it can be a very toxic community, and I always, when I'm reading through these threads, I'm like, that's just your opinion, man. Because there's some stuff you can do, because you're right, they're so focused on damage. You're you're wrong. You're min-maxing wrong is what you're doing, because you can take some of this stuff and do really cool, fun stuff that no one else could think of. And if you are just focused on this is meta, damage is all, you're missing out on a lot of fun. So that's all.
Well, I mean, when you're in an internet thread, I mean, the tendency is to go for numbers and stuff, because what else are you going to talk about in a thread, you know? So, and I find a lot of stuff.
You're going to tell stories of all these crazy things your characters have done, even though it wasn't in their wheelhouse. That can be interesting too.
Yeah.
I think those threads are really interesting about the fastest muck alive or whatever, where they really do the math. And they figure out, you're never going to do that for real, but it's interesting that, you can take those books and make it happen anyway,
Yeah.
The muck can run I forget how many miles it was in a round.
Yeah.
if you apply all these different things to your character, So, I think those are fun to look at, but I'm not going to do that in a real game.
You're right. Maybe they're just min-maxing wrong. Maybe that's it.
That's obviously it. And they should all listen to me and min-max my way.
Everyone is stupid but me.
Oh, yeah. When Joe watches this one later, he's going to be so proud of me.
Yeah. So
But I mean, like I'm saying, that was Thespis, by the way. That's Joe's character's name. But that was the Joe's thing. Was Joe was like, I'm going to min-max, and I'm going to min-max, and it's not going to involve any combat at all. And I was just like, is that allowed? Is that even possible? And yes, it was.
And my character is it's not just that his character isn't effective in combat; it's that he refuses to hold a weapon. So my character's chucking daggers at him in the middle of combat. Take this, take it, and he's just letting him fall on the ground and getting stabbed at the same time.
That's just role play, but he's min-maxed that character, and then he brought the role play with it, and now suddenly you have a really great dynamic between your two characters. You're like, you have to defend yourself, and he's like, I cannot, no.
And I'm not saying it can't be done, but we'll see how long he lives.
Taking a vow of pacifism.
Yeah. We'll see how long he lives. I don't know.
I'm going to keep him alive as long as possible.
For you, Alden, I have a question. When
Yes.
you are making a character from level 1, and
Mhm.
you know we're probably gonna get to at least 15.
Okay.
Do you have all of that min-maxing in mind from the beginning? Even before your character has fully developed and it's because even at level 1, like I have an idea of how I would like to play my character on Wednesday. I base all my characters on personality types, not on pretty much anything else. So do you know going in at level 5, I'm gonna multi-class, or I'm gonna choose this background because I know it's gonna be the best for this race, for this class combined?
So, I want to say guilty as charged because I've taken the 8 in Dex and the 8 in Intelligence, and I'm going to leave those alone, and I'm going to power through. But you know what? I have no idea what oath I'm going to pick. I have no idea if I'm going to stick with Variant Human, though I'm probably going to. But but the big thing is that I did start with the stats, and I have not created his personality. I've got an idea of personality only because of the background I eventually picked. And it's Soldier, spoilers. Yeah, not really, because it hasn't happened yet. But I picked Soldier because I'm like, 10 Towns is a violent, and this is only from the books I've read. I have no idea what's going on there. But I know 10 Towns. I've read all of the Driss books and whatnot. 10 Towns is constantly at war. And I'm like, you can be a soldier at 10 Towns. Bada bing, bada boom, and like I'm gonna know some people. The DM will be able to let me know where I am, what I am. I'm really relying heavily on Morgan, which is it's unfortunate she's not feeling well because I'm gonna like type her like a paragraph and be like, by the way, you need to tell me what's up. Get well soon. Oh yeah.
Get well soon.
But yeah, and I've got a rough idea of what he's going to act like, but I'm not sure, and I really just went with the fact that his intelligence is low and his dex is low, and how he would survive in the cold and unforgiving environment of Icewind Dale.
So we did end up in an environment where survival definitely ended up being a more important stat that it's something we were rolling more often. Would you, by level 3, you kind of realize this trend. Would you change your character to add things to survival, so like the wisdom stat block, in order to pander to the game?
That's funny that you say that because I don't have survival, and it's probably something I'm going to try and get somewhere along the way. Because how could I have marched from? How do you march from one place to another on the frozen tundra without survival? I'm not going to ask questions right now. I'm just let the DM hand wave the fact that I've somehow survived this long. But you're right. I don't have survival. How did I live? Nobody knows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Well,
but it's definitely something I would take.
That brings up another part of it, because we talked about stats, we talked about race. What about multi-classing? Are you, since we're talking about character progression, and you think about because when you're looking at a subclass or whatever for your character, trying to build a character, you can't help but think about levels further on, right? So maybe you think about dipping somewhere. So I mean, have you thought about that at all?
Yeah, but has anyone ever multi-classed and it not been about stats? Unless they're taking a character from one campaign and moving it to a different. So they created a new skill, they had a new job or whatever.
I have one for you. It's now you're going to shout out another podcast, so you're doing terribly here. Glass Cannon Podcast, Joe O'Brien. People will love to bash Joe because Joe will be like, well, we did a lot of this, so I'm going to take this because it makes sense that my character would have learned that, and it's something completely useless to the campaign or completely useless to his character. But but because absolutely you've been on a riverboat for a week, of course you're going to suddenly take profession, fisherman or something like that, and he loves to do that, and it drives us power gamers insane.
See, I love to do that too. I love that.
But
That's
it's great,
like,
and he's having fun, and you know what? His characters are still effective overall. It's just really very funny that you mentioned that, because if I'm going to take something, it's going to be something that's useful. Yeah, it is. I'm not gonna take Profession Baker. Sorry. Even if I spend a long time with the baker's wife or something, not gonna happen.
I don't know. That might be some of those useless skills you get in Entropy. We'll see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll take it.
Not completely useless, but
yeah, that's fair. What's your opinion on multi-classing in terms of min-maxing, James?
well, the most powerful character you can make at level 20 isn't going to be a level 20 of all one class. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you take a paladin, well, in some classes, I mean, your mileage may vary, but if you take a ranger all the way to level 20, it's not going to be as powerful as a ranger rogue or something like that, right? So I think multi-classing is really where you get into the numbers on how to make those characters, like, stupid powerful.
And maybe that's the difference between 5e and other systems I've played, because in my opinion, if you are missing out on those high-level capstones, you're a fool.
But some of those capstones aren't worth it.
I've never sat there and actually crunched out any 5e characters. I know that if in other systems, Pathfinder, if you don't go all the way up to 20 and you're a really cool, you're a really decent fighter and a really decent rogue, you don't have the capstone for either, you are falling behind those guys that went straight 20.
Interesting. Yeah, 5e is totally different from that.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
if you take Ranger level 20, you missed out on stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Think about a wizard, right? If it's all a wizard all the way up to level 20, that capstone at level 20 might not be worth it. But if it's somewhere along the way you dip 2 levels of fighter, and now you got action surge, and you're casting 2 action spells, not just bonus actions, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of things you can do with multi-classing.
But you're doing that all for the stats.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So that's the ultimate form of min-maxing.
Yeah!
That's what I'm saying.
Multi-classing. No!
That's what I'm saying. That is the ultimate form of yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It's glorious.
As you start mixing those classes together, and I can, like, my
Well, I'm gonna start taking a little bit of multi-classing into my wheelhouse.
the most powerful character I ever created.
Get powerful?
Sorry.
How did your wizard get powerful? How did he have 2 levels of
Oh
fighting?
well, I mean, if we're talking about story, I mean that's, you know, I do think, like, you should talk to your DM before you do that kind of thing.
Well, he went to a One Life Fitness, and then, he just started going every day, just really...
Like my character in Alden's campaign, he started out as a rogue, right? And it's in the Underdark. And his backstory was that he's a warforge. He was stolen from the surface by Drow, and he was, pressed into service as an assassin. So he's a rogue, right? Level 3 assassin rogue. Then when I got to level 6, we spent time in the Underdark, and he had, had to do the survival checks and all that kind of stuff. So I multi-classed him in a ranger. So now, I think he's just got 1 level of ranger so far. Or maybe 2. But at some point, he's going to be totally unkillable. Because of that ranger rogue combination, which is so lethal, because you've got the range attacks combined with sneak attack. So the plan is to go to 5 levels of ranger and to just start dumping rogue on after that. It'd been better if I'd done it the other way around, honestly, because I would have got multi-attack sooner. Yeah, you got rangers multi-attack. They get a few spells that are pretty useful, particularly to a rogue, like Pass Without Trace, things like that. So at level 10, he's probably going to be stupid powerful just because of the multi-classing. I mean, his stats aren't anything to scream about or write home about, but, just the multi-class is going to make him really, really, really powerful. So I would argue...
about entropy.
Entropy? What about...
No, go ahead. You would argue what?
What? I was just going to say, or reiterate that multi-classing is where the min-maxing happens. It's not just stats.
the ultimate form
Mm-hmm.
of multiclassing.
Glorious.
Yeah, well,
Teach me
I
your
mean,
ways, James.
What were you gonna say about entropy?
Yeah, what about entropy?
Well, yeah, I'm thinking about like on the multi-classing front. So then we think about like the subclass, or yeah. So where Nash is a ranger, which
Mm-hmm.
yes, not the most powerful class in the world, whatever. Don't at me, but that's Ash's class. And then we also have a rogue that Tessellate plays.
Mm-hmm.
But I am going to be a Gloomstalker ranger, which is
Which is the most effective ranger.
Yes, it is the most effective ranger, but there's a lot of overlap between a Gloomstalker and a rogue.
That's true.
They have very similar skills. The idea of them is very similar. So it's also interesting when you get put in that position where there are kind of two competing. It's not really two competing goals, but two competing specialties and skills, and how to make both characters impactful and important and not min-max them.
Mm-hmm. I guess we're gonna find out.
We will.
I mean, you guys just hit level 3 in entropy. I haven't played level 3 yet. It was at the end of the last session, I believe, when we went up to level 3. So we got some interesting stuff coming up in there. I'm sure there's going to be skulking around to do. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
More than enough for more than one rogue. Even if I'm a Gloomstalker Ranger isn't a rogue by any means, but they are powerful. You get those 3 attacks on the first round of combat. That's the Dread Ambusher feat. There's something else cool about Dread Ambusher. I can't remember what it is at the moment. Alden, are you either creating multi-class characters now? Is that what you're doing?
I am. I'm into it now. I'm like, oh my god, what can I do to break these characters? And you know what's really funny is I looked it up, and now this is just one dude on Reddit, but he's like, monk doesn't really benefit from multi-class. Go straight monk, and I'm like, damn it! So
some classes get multi-attack, some don't. You know what I mean? You combine those together.
I'll get you next game, James. I'll get you next game.
All right. Maybe you'll get Morgan. I think Paladin's one of those classes, though. I think the level 20 capstone's probably worth it.
Yeah.
But you could multi-class some cleric or something like that, and just as long as you got the base stats or the the prerequisite.
Yep.
But I also was I'm thinking back to Endless Midnight now, and our leveling up was kind of weird there, and class and race didn't totally matter in Endless Midnight, so this might not be the best argument, but thinking back to the relationship that Turnock and Mulligan had, and if I was going to multi-class, especially now that Mulligan and I are out, or Mulligan and I, not myself and Kristen right now, but Mulligan and Turnock are, part of me is always Turnock, so it's hard to separate. But now that, they're out in the mountains trying to explore, like, it would be interesting if you're on kind of a journey like that and forcing yourself to multi-class based on who you're with, not even what skills you're learning or anything, because you're learning from that person specifically.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe you're learning from that person, or you're having to learn things to pick up slack of things that you're missing as a party.
Yeah.
You're forced to pick up those ranger skills to be able to make your way through the mountains because Mulligan doesn't know how to do that. Or maybe you learn from Mulligan how to throw an uppercut or whatever.
Exactly. I have trouble thinking of it based on stats. Like every time I think of either multi-classing or adding a new skill, it's all based on what's going on in the campaign and not
wonderful. That is a wonderful way to play.
It is. But there are entire websites devoted to breaking down how to multi-class characters together, classes together to stitch together that character that's going to, one-shot a Tarask or whatever, I don't think that's possible specifically, but maybe it is. I think I remember, or crit fishing. You ever heard of crit fishing, Kristen?
Oh, this is so fun.
No, I haven't.
You can go down that rabbit hole later if you want to.
Okay.
It's a paladin thing. Well, thanks for coming, guys. thanks for joining us on Goblin Talk. If you think we missed anything, feel free to put it in the comments down below, and I'm sure we did. In our casual
Oh wait,
chat.
what's our ending decision here?
Oh,
To min-max
Our
or
ending
to not?
decision is that if you don't min-max, you're wrong. Obviously.
I'm still kind of ambivalent.
Yeah,
I think you could do it either way. I think if you want to if you don't want to think about it at all, that's fine. If you want to think about it way too much, go the other way too. I mean, it's up to your DM to really weave you into the story and make you,
And here's my actual opinion on the matter. If you are not taking away from anyone else's fun, including the DM, you do you, you know? But I mean,
especially the DM.
The moment, no, never mind. Screw the DM, ruin his time. But anyways, like, as long as you aren't ruining any of your party's fun in your min-maxing awful, filthy ways, and I hope I'm not. I hope nobody knew that I was a filthy min-maxer till today. So in that case, great. Everyone else is having fun, and that's what matters.
yeah.
It is.
Okay, I'm in.
All right.
I'll min-max now.
Yes!
Look out, Morgan.
But only if it fits the story. Only.
Oh, all right. No, it's fine. I'm just gonna have to keep that in mind and be like, oh, hey, look. Oh, wow. Look at here's some cleric pamphlets for you. I don't even know if clerics would be. Just, I'm just gonna find some pamphlets for you. You're gonna be like, are you trying to, you son of a.
Okay, so Morgan, you're going to need twice as many monsters.
Yep.
And they're all going to be
max HP,
max
obviously.
HP and all that kind of stuff. So, and we're ready for you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for coming. Thanks for coming, guys. Kristen, Alden, appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
We'll see you next time.